Morley, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Of course,
Yeah.
man. We got to talk about your film that disrupted my sleep for a few days.
Um,
it your
Mine
film
too.
your film made me question my adaptability in a zombie apocalypse. So, thanks.
No, yeah.
well,
I know I'm going to be the first one to die.
yeah. Well, I'm sorry and thank you. It's like the ultimate compliment.
I think I'll probably be the second one to go. So
So
if
him and I are
if not,
already done.
Well,
yeah.
you never know. You could be in that less than 1% that, you know, no, you don't think you'd be.
No, I don't
Try
think
a
so.
0.5.
Yeah, yeah,
That's where I
Yeah,
am at that. I can
yeah,
barely walk. I can barely run. So I'm done.
yeah.
I'm
yeah.
done.
Well, the virus is non-discriminatory, so you never know. But yeah,
So
Yeah.
your movie premiered on Screenbox and it hit number 2.
thank
Congratulations,
you,
sir.
thank you.
Yes,
Like,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
because I didn't know anything about this film. I didn't watch a trailer.
No,
I didn't watch nothing at all.
okay,
no, I
And
went in blind.
I went in totally blind
great,
and I watched it at like 3:45 in the morning because I have
okay,
no life. And I immediately sent it to Brandon over here, and we've been
Yeah,
talking about this film for weeks now.
yeah.
Like, where did you
yeah.
get your inspiration for this film?
Uh, so it's a that's a great question. I think it was during COVID, and everyone was desperate in the industry to like, oh, how are we going to shoot something where we just need one actor and we can shoot in one location and we can make it interesting. And I had right before
Hmm.
COVID had been commissioned to do a few scripts for people, and I thought, finally, I think the best piece of advice I got ever was from an agent who said, instead of just continue to work for people, go do it on your own. Like just go direct.
Yeah.
Like you take the dive, do it. And then I think that piece of advice was invaluable, so I decided to do that. But I think the inspiration had always come from, I don't want to talk about it too much, but I was a cop before I was in filmmaking, and
Okay.
I got to work for a sub office of Homeland Security called the Office of Domestic Preparedness, right? And so
Yeah.
Okay.
their whole function is to prepare for an attack that's chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, or explosive,
Mhm.
right? So
Okay.
how do you rapidly deploy a department and National Guard and all these different task forces working together to contain something? And so that was kind of where
Mhm.
the idea sparked. It was like, how if there were actually a zombie or infected outbreak, right? How
Yeah.
would we actually react as a society, right? And how would local government and local neighborhoods react to that? So the idea of having like a pre-breakout, pre-apocalyptic, like what happens in the pre-stages, right? And I think outside of Fear of the Walking Dead, there's not that many zombie or infected fare where it shows like, okay, this is what happens in the beginning, right? What
Yeah.
happens when I wanted to get
Yeah.
back to like the George Romero kind of Night of
Oh,
Living Dead, right? Like,
you're talking to me
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like grandfather of horror, of zombie horror, right? Like
Yeah.
Hmm.
he made it
Yeah.
creepy when there's one, right? Like remember when there's just that when you're at the graveyard and there's the one zombie, right? And then the one zombie becomes two, and then by the time you go through the story and you're living with these characters, you have a horde, right? But even the horde's
Yep.
not that
Hmm.
big, and I think Romero did a
Yeah.
great job of asking, like he kind of threw that question out there of what would you do if a loved one got infected, right? With that little girl and the parents,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
we can't kill her or whatever. And so I love that idea because it's so real, right? Like, what would you
Yeah. Hmm.
do if a loved one got infected, right? And
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
30 or 40 years since then, we've had so many different, productions of whether it's series or film, where I think we're at the stage now where it's like, oh, if someone's infected, they're fucked. Fuck them, they're dead. Like, it's not your
Pretty much.
mom, fuck her. Bam, dead, right? Like, 28
Pretty
days
much.
later, perfect example, like, oh, he might be infected. Oh, hack his head. Like, it's machete. It's done. It's like no question, no
Yeah.
hesitation, right? And in fact, I think how many times you've been watching like an infected show or zombie drama or zombie film where you're just like, will you please just kill them? What are you doing? Like, shoot the guy. He got bit. Shoot him, right? So,
Have you been in my
Yeah.
living room
Yeah.
recently?
yeah, yeah,
Uh, that is word for word what I've said. He's been bitten. Kill him. Shoot him in the face.
right. Like, it's done. What do you? Yeah, are you crazy? Everyone else is gonna die now. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think I wanted to get away from that because I feel like we're too quick, and I feel like you lose an element of humanity when you, in your mind, you're just like, let's shoot them right away. And so I wanted to figure out like, how do I do a story where it's, well, what if this person might change back? Like, then if there's a less than 1% chance, it's still a chance, right? Your daughter gets infected or your father gets infected. If there's a 1% chance or less that they could change back, now are you going to shoot them in the face right away, or are you going to chain them to the radiator downstairs in the basement, right? Like, what do you
Now
do,
you're putting me in a conundrum now.
right?
Yeah.
The
I
one
think I would
percent.
just.
So it's 1%. You said.
Or less than what? I mean, you don't really know. I didn't really, so that's more for the sequel, but if there's just a chance, right? Like a small chance, no, not necessarily 1%, or maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 0.5%. But what if the person you love the most is infected? Would you kill them, or would you wait to see if they change back?
I would chain him to the wall,
Yeah, right.
away from everybody though.
Yes, exactly, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, put them in a dungeon, put them in a room, handcuff them, whatever. You do whatever it takes to hope that loved one came back. And so that was the moral question I wanted to ask. And then on top of that,
Mhm.
I wanted to also ask, if that's the case and they do change back and they're completely healed of everything, right? Like any disease, anything they had prior. So your cancer is gone, or
Yeah.
your arthritis in your hands are gone, or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or whatever.
Yeah.
Would you be, if you have someone who's terminal, a family member that's terminal, who's going to die anyway, would you infect them
Mhm.
in the chance that they would also change back?
Now you're asking me the questions. I don't like this.
Yeah,
Because
right.
I'm thinking now.
Yeah,
I I don't know. I don't know what I
yeah.
would do.
See, and that's
I think I think I would put them like away from everybody.
Yeah.
yeah. I think,
That.
and then so then I wanted to. So that's kind of the premise of the movie, right? Like that's the core of the movie is those two questions: a moral question on top of another moral question, but also if you've been lived. So say you do make that decision, you infect your loved one, like in the movie, they infect the boy so that he can survive, right? Because he's got a terminal disease, he's got a terminal heart disease.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So they infect him. He does change back, but they've been living with this now. So he changes back into a zombie at random, right? Could be
Yeah.
a day, could be an hour, could be a year, but at some point he changes back. So he's a risk to his family, but at the same time, how do you let him be a little boy? How do you let him live his life? How do you let him
Yeah.
live his life next to his sister or next to you, right? And so for someone that's been living with that condition, would you put someone else through it knowing that, right? So if you've been living with it for
Yeah.
over a year, is it worth that pain and suffering? So now it's like, I'm, I'm pretty sure I would. If my wife
Yeah.
got a terminal disease, I'm
I
pretty sure
would.
I'd infect her, but would I feel that same way a year later, right? Or 2 years later,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
what if they never change back? Like, how long are you keeping them handcuffed in the basement, right? Before
30 days.
30 days, what
A
do you
few
do?
days. Yeah, at least a few days. I
I'll give
wouldn't.
him a month.
A month?
I'll give him a
Don't let
month.
your
Man,
wife hear
I don't
that, man.
know.
Like, what?
She's
I don't know
probably
if I
wished
would
the
give him
same
a
on me. Let's
month.
be real.
What's that?
She'll probably do the same thing to me. I'll give
Yeah.
you 30 days.
Yeah.
I don't know
Be
if she would give
realistic.
you 30
Well,
days. I don't think she would.
no, 3? Would you eat with 3? No.
Yeah,
Probably not.
I did.
Probably a day.
I
You're on the clock, sir,
Right.
is what she would say to me.
Yeah. What? No.
24 hours. If you ain't changed back, you're gone.
Yeah. Take out the trash more. That's all I gotta say. Like, just
Yeah.
yeah. But
That's
yeah.
great.
So,
So,
so that was,
so,
I
so
think,
can we talk spoilers
sure,
in this episode?
sure.
Because
Please.
actually, I'm not going to say spoilers because I want people to
No,
watch.
no, no, no. I want
Well,
people to
thank you.
watch this.
I want people
Okay.
to watch.
Okay.
The part in the film that stuck with me for the most part is the twist.
Which one?
When the one, the one
Oh, the
where
big one. The big
the
one.
big one
Yeah.
Okay.
stuck with me for the longest time because I've never seen a zombie movie do what you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How did you come up with that twist? Because it
The
fucked me.
back. Yeah.
So wait, are we talking
The
about
back and
this
forwards.
one? Are we talking about this one? Are we talking about
We're talking when we find out
The
that
the back and forwards.
the what he said
the back and
Yeah.
forwards?
The back and forwards. Yeah.
that we have this too. By the way, that
Oh, that
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That portion.
yes,
I don't, I wanted to, it's when I wanted to write a story where it's not just dependent on action to take you from scene to scene. It's dependent on like the story, right? And setting up, I think as a horror fan myself, I definitely use the conventional, or I hate when people say trope because it's like a negative, but I use the conventional storytelling of an infection or zombie film, right? And so you're going along, and then I want to, right when you think, oh, well, this is always what happens, I wanted to like take a turn and be like, well, that's not what's happening. So I keep you invested in the story because you're like, oh, wait a second, that's not supposed to be that way. Like, what? And then you go, and that allows you to do something else, and you're like, oh, wait, no, that can't be right. Like, I think, wait, what? And then you keep watching. So now you're like, well, wait a second. Like I think Brandon said, like you're trying to figure out the clues, right? Like you're detectiving your way through. And then, when you do this, without talking about it, it's like, well, then how do you do something that you can't come back from from a story point of view, right?
Yeah.
So it's, I think, infecting. I think so. That's a bad pun, but infecting the audience with something where they're like, "Oh shit!" Like I got to think about that. Like what, that's I think the ultimate goal of a horror film is like, can you get people to talk about it with themselves or think about something for a day or more after they watch it? Like to me, that's successful, right? Like you've done something where it's embedded in somebody's mind enough where they're continuing to think about it. And I think that's what, as horror fans, we desire smart stuff, right? Like we're craving content that challenges us and that is smart and that allows us to feed our big brains, right? Like we don't
exactly.
We don't all the three of us here. We don't tolerate crap, right? Like I don't. No. If I watch something and I'm like, I watch a lot of stuff, and 20 minutes in, if it's not hitting, I'm just like, and maybe that's to my detriment.
It's horrible. Move on.
Yeah. Like, and
wow,
and
you give it 20 minutes?
Yeah. See,
I have a 45-minute rule in my house.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say I give it about 40 minutes or so.
About 45 is generous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that's the thing, right? Like we want to be. You hear my dog, Scout.
The puppy.
Yeah. So that's Scout from the movie.
Hey, there you go.
She's a good protector. She was amazing. I have to take a sort. There's like I'm gonna gloat for a second, but she was awesome during filming. Like to get her to just listening to what I'd say, like yawning, getting her to yawn, getting her to poke Jack in the stomach. She did it like for 2 or 3 takes, where she continued to poke him in the stomach. Like that dog can act. Like it was just like, oh, that's a good job, and she's great.
It's awesome.
And then protecting the kids, she always hit her mark, right? You're always like, wow, that's fantastic. So, um, but also talk about a trooper. She's only 11 pounds, and so when we're
Oh, nice.
yeah, so when we're filming outside, it's probably, I think on average, it was, I think we talked about it before, like on average, it was like 10 to 13 below on our shoot days. And then
Yeah.
negative, we had usually, I think it was probably negative 22 wind chill was average. The
Hmm.
coldest we got was negative 45. But
Jeez.
scouts out there in our warm
I don't
little,
know if I could do the coldness like that.
yeah.
Oh hell no.
Well,
Mm.
it's interesting because she loves being out in the cold, and we have to constantly make sure that either she's got like these booties that we put on her, or but she loves staying
the
outside.
the little jackets and
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wardrobe was
yeah.
great with like Carrie Riley, our head of wardrobe, was just awesome. But Scout was constantly, we'd bring her in the house because we shot at our house. And
Hmm.
so we would bring her inside I'm like, just warm her up or whatever. And she would beg, like you could hear her when we're trying to shoot something whining because she wants to get outside. So it was just like, all right, let her out, whatever. But yeah, so it was great. It was fun working with her, and it was fun working with the kids in the movie are mine. So Brooke was 2.5 at the time, and then Jack was 7. And
That is crazy knowing that it's like all of you
Yeah.
that
yeah,
are in the movie.
yeah,
It's just
and
because I wouldn't imagine that because the way that they acted and everything was just so perfect to me.
thank you,
And
I
it
thought
was
they're
just,
professional.
yeah,
thank
I
you.
thought they were too. I would have never known that, the woman in the movie is your wife and the
Yeah,
kids are yours. I would have never known that. They don't like, you don't really have um, the non-acting type. It didn't seem that way at all.
No.
thank you. Yeah, that was it. I'll have to tell them that because they'll make them feel good. Like
Yeah.
while you're shooting, I don't think because they're not actors, they don't. Um, they've never had a day of training. Um, my wife has a full-time job, and so she'd come home from
Hmm.
work and then do her scenes, and then she'd take the kids out to Airbnb because we had crew at we're shooting all through the night sometimes, and so the kids obviously have bedtime and they couldn't be here. So she was great at doing that, but I think they were a little nervous when the film came out because I think although it's not a kids film, they're
Hmm.
in it, and so they're worried about their friends at school, like, oh, are they gonna make fun of me? Or are they gonna? It's just like you're in a movie. Like, what do you? They're not gonna make fun of you. They're gonna be like, whoa, you're in a movie, whatever.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And they're not.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So thank
It's the
you.
more of hey, I'm gonna be disappointed because now you feel like as a kid growing up when somebody would say, "Hey, I'm doing something exciting," you're like, "Wow, I wish I could do that."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
pretty much.
it's been his friends have been really supportive, and I think at their age, I think they could watch it, but I'm still not sure. Like
Yeah.
I watched Predator with him the other night,
Okay.
Hell
and
yeah.
Yeah.
it was like, is it too scary? Is it too violent? And he's just like, you know, this isn't because today that movie is what 20 years old or 30 years old, and to
Yeah, it's
him,
Yeah.
almost 30 years old now.
yeah,
Yeah.
like to us, it was like, oh, that was a fucking awesome film, right? To him, he's like, well, I've already seen different variations of this on the internet, so it's just like, right? But
Yeah.
Internet's ruined stuff for people. I
it
understand.
has, it has. But it's, Predator, another film, right? Like unique, creative, never stuff you've never seen before. Um, that was, I think that stuff is phenomenal. But for us, we're such a tiny film. Um, we had to shoot everything practically. And I think, like Predator, I love their creature effects in Predator, right? Like I
Oh
think
yeah.
that was
Yeah.
phenomenal. So being able to do stuff like that saves time and energy. But I think also for the actors, it's nice to act against something, right? Like instead of acting at a tennis ball, to actually see it and be in the scene. Like, and
Hmm.
it's also fun, right? Like I'm not,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not going to hide it. It was like a blast to shoot some of that stuff, like the the stuff with Peter O'Mara, our bad guy. He played Brett, the black hat and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right.
yep.
We're shooting that. I don't want to give it away, but well, I guess your movie does have a lot of twists and turns when you're like, well, I can't talk about this, or I can't talk about this, or I don't want to give this away.
Yeah.
But that one thing that happened with the thing, and we did that other thing with
Yeah,
the guy. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, but
You don't want to give too much away. That's the
no, because it
because you
ruins.
want people to see it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. But there's a part where, and you guys know the part, but
Yeah,
I'm holding a tub to catch the blood coming out of my mouth and
Yep.
oh, yeah, 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 yep,
everywhere,
yep.
right? And he's looking at me like, what are we doing? And then wardrobe, Kerry Riley's like, oh, don't get the wardrobe bloody because, we only have one because we can't afford
Yeah,
4 or 10, so it's just like, so she's nervously looking on and he's like, what are you doing? And then, like our art department, Jason Dean Thomas is like, okay, I'll hold it for you. And he's laying underneath you holding this bucket and the blood is just flowing into getting, 10 pounds of blood on top. And he's like, oh, whatever. And then the actor, but, Peter's a phenomenal actor. He was in Band of Brothers. He was, great.
Yeah.
He's Irish.
yeah,
It's not even his real accent, but,
yeah,
so he's looking at me and I'll never forget. He was just like, we had to do, because it was so much, practical effects. We had to make sure that we had enough for edit. So we actually were able to do that scene like 4 takes. And the second take, he looks at me and he's like, what the fuck are we doing? I don't understand what is it that you're doing? And I'm just like,
yeah,
and then by the 4th take, he was like, oh, aliens. And I was
yeah,
just like, yes,
yeah,
exactly. Like it'll make sense when it's in the film. But at that moment, he was just like, but then finally when he grasped it, it was like, okay, that's the take we're using. So,
yeah,
but it's that stuff is, I think it's such a blast, right? And it's so fun to, like, I think stunt work is awesome. Like, just, I love running and jumping and falling and, oh, maybe not falling in the snow too much, excuse me, but,
yeah,
and being naked in the snow. I'm glad I did it once. I don't know that I'd ever do it
yeah,
again, but, and again, don't want to give away that either, but being,
yeah.
being naked and covered in snow at 22 degrees below
I,
zero is
I, I,
just,
I still just can't imagine. It's
Nope.
yeah,
like everything, all your body parts just
yeah,
go numb, and I
yeah,
couldn't do it.
yeah. And it's interesting too, because we're shooting in that kind of temperature and it's, my kids are used to it because they're from here. And so
Yeah,
they're acclimatized to it. Whereas the actors that we had from LA, they're just like, whoa. And it's shocking, right? Like if you've never been in below zero temperature before, like it's a shock the second you can't breathe as well. The air effect
yeah,
kind of burns your lungs a little bit. Your nose hurts from breathing that cold air. And then as an actor, your muscles tighten in your face. So you can't deliver just like you want to deliver like a normal line, like, and you want it to be
yeah,
natural, but natural is like, instead of saying like, oh, we have to go find all of them, it's like, and you're just like, oh, got to warm the face up. Okay, take time out, time that you don't have because you don't have a budget, and warm up the actor, and then everyone gets warm really quick, and then you come back out and you shoot it again, and then you have to be,
yeah,
so you're focused on that, but then also you have to focus on the fact that you have crew out there who they don't get a break, right? They don't get to go
Yeah.
and warm their face, and they don't get to, but again, having local crew who are from here, they know like, oh, okay, I have to dress in layers and I have to do this for my feet and I have to do this for my hands, right? And so they're a little more prepared, but you still have to keep an eye on the elements because that's, you're risking injury. At no point are you risking death, but a lot of times you just have to be careful. Like what are we doing and where are we in the day? Are we taking enough breaks where people can go warm themselves up and do
Yeah.
it? So,
yeah.
but yeah, I think the only person ever that came close to anything bad was me, and I'd do it happily again. Like it was such a fun
Mm.
experience, and be able to say like, okay, this is what hypothermia feels like. Like, oh, okay, now I know, right? Like, I don't have to
No, yeah.
next
Never
time. I'll
does
know.
again. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, too much, too far. Let's go. Yeah. So, um, yeah. And I don't. Again, it's tough to give away because I don't want people, if they haven't seen the film, not to experience the twists. But um, when I'm naked through half the film, I'm kidding. I'm not naked through half the film.
I
But
was
No,
like, half
no.
of it.
yeah,
Did I watch the wrong one?
yeah, I know. That's a whole different industry. No, yeah, the yeah. So it was, I think, filming. I think for a lot of filmmakers like me, production is a
Yeah.
blast. Like prep is fun and exciting because you're like, oh, your imagination's still going. Like this is how we're going to capture this on film, and we're going to have this do this, and there's all that potential, right? So that's pre-production, and then production. You're just like, this is so much fun. Like
Yeah.
there's so many problems that you have to fix. There's people
Yeah.
working together in like you have this like community morale thing going on. It's just fantastic. You're like working as like a family and everything's firing and you're just like, that's great. And then,
Hmm.
so you have a true sense of community, right?
Yeah.
And then you get into edit and I didn't know the editor that did our film before the film. I met him once or twice, but, when we started sitting down and intimately working on the film, right, piece by piece and you're getting very familiar with it, he became like one of my closer friends. Charlie
Hmm.
Grishevsky is fantastic. He owns his own, he's like one of two or three owners of his own production house. And
Yeah.
he was gracious enough to say that he would do it. And he spent a lot of time and dedication. But he's ended up being like a phenomenal friend. Like I enjoyed that process so much. I learned so much. And then it was one of those moments where if you're lucky enough at work, you find somebody that you can relate to and talk about
Hmm.
more things like bigger ideas and things like that. So he was phenomenal. And he really, I don't have a very good sense of music. Like I know what I like, but I don't know how to necessarily find it. And he,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as an editor, not only does he know music really well, but he's able to edit
Hmm.
to like a beat. So he edits to like music in his head. And so
Damn.
Yeah.
those edits
That's
that come
cool.
in, yeah, I didn't know that any of that stuff. He's like, 4 beat, 16 beat. I'm like, what?
That's wild.
But,
That's wild.
so working with that was fantastic. And then we were lucky enough to get Courtney Blythe Turk, our producer, knew composers and sound designers named Chromosomes. And it's Chase Cooker and Ryan Wood. And they're actually twins, but not related. So they're each twins to someone else, and then they work together. So
Nice.
yeah,
Okay.
but they did the score, they did all the songs, and that I think really elevated the film, right? Like having those music cues come in the right time, the quality of music and the quality of sound, um,
Yeah.
really helped with the film. And I think too, we were fortunate enough. Um, I didn't know her before, but we're rep by the same management company. But Coco
Hmm.
Quinn did that song in the post-credit scene where
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and,
Yeah. That was good.
and she is talk about somebody. I thought she was like 28. So I'm talking to the singer. I'm like, oh man, your songs are excellent. Your voice is. I mean, she has like a voice that's phenomenal. And then she's like, well, I have to get my driver's license still. And I'm just like, wait, what?
What?
Yeah, like,
What?
and she's like,
No
at the
way.
time she was 15. So
What?
yeah, so the woman singing that song, or I guess the girl singing that song, is currently she's going to be
Hey,
17 now, but she's a
it's
teenager.
crazy.
Yeah, so her voice, so she's going to be like,
Yeah, she's gonna be something special.
yeah,
I
she'll be
I
huge.
need a minute. I need a minute. A timeout.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Yeah.
What?
yeah,
I can't imagine that. That's just mind blowing
yeah.
that
She,
she
Wow.
was that young.
yeah, I had no clue because you like when talking to her on a Zoom call, right? She looks and sounds, she carries herself like a 20-some-year-old. She looks like she could be 20. I mean, she looks like somebody that now knowing that she's a teenager, she's probably going to look like she's 20 or like ever. Like
Yeah.
she can maintain 20 for probably a really long time, but I think a lot of it is also how she presents herself, right? Like
Oh,
the
1,000%.
way she speaks, the way she carries herself, and then on top of it, her talent. Because you're like,
Yeah.
how does someone that young, how do they develop their,
Sound that
yeah,
great and
And get it at
not.
such a young age.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, like
That's wild.
where is her voice?
I can't imagine that.
No,
Yeah.
like what is
Just
she
wait till
gonna?
she's 30.
Yeah, like where's her voice gonna be? It's gonna be phenomenal, right? Like just she's
Oh yeah.
great now, but yeah. So we were really fortunate to work with her, and it just so happens that she's friends with the teenager in the movie, Haley. So
Yeah.
Gabrielle, the daughter, the abused daughter of the bad guy. So they're
Yeah.
friends. So it's crazy. Like they're actually,
What?
yeah. So
Oh, that's
so
wild
it was just like,
too.
what? So,
Yeah, you're just mind blown.
yeah,
I can't
Jeez.
I can't imagine that now. It's
no.
just
And
because you're watching a movie and you hear that and you see them and it's like I just couldn't imagine them being that young.
yeah, yeah, and it was fantastic to work with watching two actors who've never met before, that day being able to convince you that they're father and daughter, right? Like in
Wow.
that dynamic
Yeah.
where Peter Brett is abusive towards this teenage daughter, Haley, who plays Gabrielle, and it's totally believable.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of funny when you watch it because I wanted a little, it's like sprinkle in a little bit of humor because I think some of you need to relieve the tension, right? Like you can't just have total
Oh yeah, you can't
intense
have it
all the time,
full.
right? Yeah, you need levity. So like I love the part where he's with her and they're like in the woods and he's got the big shotgun, the 870, and she's like, I love you, Dad. And he's like, I know, whatever. And it's like,
Yeah,
well,
that's just so wild.
yeah, that's the relationship they have, whatever. And so he's like,
Yeah.
here, take this gun and kill that kid or what, it's just like, yeah. And she's like, oh, do I have to kill everybody? Whatever. And it's just like, well, that's interesting. And, and that's the other thing that I like about, Peter is able to play a character where at first you're like, oh, he's the bad guy. I mean, he's literally wearing the black hat, right? But
Yeah.
he's got such gravitas to him where he's able to pull off halfway after meeting him. You're like, well, wait a second. Is he a bad guy or is he just protecting his family? Like, is he just doing whatever it takes to protect not only his daughters, but his community? Like, he's
Yeah,
stepping up,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Because they're 40 miles from any major city, right? Or
Damn.
sorry, just
Yeah.
a city. They're 40 miles from a small city.
A city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably 100 miles from a large metropolitan area, right? So they're on their own, right? They're out in the woods, elements. On a good day, they're by themselves, relying on themselves. On a bad day, which
Yeah.
is the movie, right? Now they're like this tight knit community has to come together. And is he just the guy that the neighborhood is like, yeah, he's, like the president of the association? Or is he the guy that we respect and he's the one that's going to protect us all? And let's listen to what he says. And that's,
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be like a typical, like, oh, I think we've seen, and I think it's been done well, but I think we've seen what happens in like Walking Dead when you have communities of people coming together to take care of themselves, right? You're like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
we've seen
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yep.
I wanted it to be like in pre breakout. What is it when your neighbor takes up, wants to protect themselves and they band together? Like these are just regular people, right? They're not bad. They just
No.
don't know what's coming. And they know that there's these people that are infected or acting feral like, right? Like they're
Yeah, they're acting crazy.
right. And so that's scary. And they don't know how you're catching it. So that's scary too. So then they're doing what anybody would do, right? Like they're already have this community that relies on each other. So now they just get a little bit tighter. And so now it's like, well, is he a bad guy? Right. And he's kind of a mirror to the mom, right? Where they'll do
Yeah.
anything to protect their family. It's just ethically, so they have the same value, protection of family, but
Yeah.
ethically, how they go about it is vastly different, right? And so
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what makes them, a lot, I guess.
Different.
Yes, like he's willing to do things that she would never do or even consider, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, and I wanted to make it again, trying to make it as real as possible, right?
Oh, it was real.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh yeah, it was definitely made you feel like this could really happen. This
Yeah,
is something really that could be a thing. Like one day it could be a thing. We just
yeah,
don't. None of us actually know if this is going to be a thing one day. But then
Yeah.
it's like you get this, you get this thought in your head of where would you go, what would you do, and how would you do it.
yeah. And I love that because I think we all do that as horror fans, right? Like especially zombie fans.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
we all have a go bag, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna jump in the truck, grab the kids, head north. Oh, I gotta get my wife. Head north, um, and go to this place, right, and hang out here, and this is how we're gonna do it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Can you edit that
So
part out where I said, "Oh, go back and get my wife"? Is that you wanna?
I got you. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
So I was doing a little bit of research because I've seen your name before we chatted on Instagram.
Mhm.
It did you write the script for the Walking Dead video game?
Yeah.
The story?
Yeah.
Now,
I
which
still
which
have my
one?
copy of that game.
Oh, you do?
Survival Instincts. I still have my copy somewhere.
Oh, the
Oh, nice.
survival. Okay,
Nice.
Survival Instincts. That
Okay.
game was fucking
that
phenomenal.
game was awesome.
Thank you.
I loved that one.
Yeah, thank you. So I got brought on by AMC to write this, because it involves Daryl and Merle. And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
they wanted to flesh out like, well, what's their backstory? And so I was I was stuck in a bad situation because the company that was the company that was actually making the game had written a script, and
Hmm.
AMC was like, no, like there's no mechs in Walking Dead. Like there's
Yeah.
no, like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And they just weren't happy with the way the story was. So then I had to come in and work with this company where they're like, oh, who's this guy and what is he gonna, he's better than us or whatever. So that's never a favorable position. But then you just end up working together because you have to, and you end up figuring things out. And video games are tough because they don't get a big enough budget, and they got to kill themselves to code as many things as possible. So you write the script,
Yeah.
and the difference between a regular script might be 90 to 100 pages. A video game script
Yeah.
is 700 pages or more, because you
Wow.
have to figure out if the character does this, right? Then the NPCs have to be able to respond to this. But that also has to make sense if the character comes back and goes this way. Or if
Yeah.
you're at the decision tree, if the character chooses this, then how does that affect the story for the other levels? And it all has to, so it's all super messy. You have to write multiple lines of potential dialogue depending on what the player does, and then
Yeah.
multiple responsive lines by the NPCs based on what the character does. So that all has to make sense. Because a lot of times, like when I play video games, right, the first time through,
Mhm.
you don't know the map, you don't know what's going on. So you're running around, and you might come back to that NPC, and you don't want them to say the same thing over again because that's going to ruin your
No.
experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so you have to figure out dialogue by the third time they come back to you and get in your perimeter. The NPC says, haven't you been near me enough? Like, go figure it out, or what, something clever.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Walking Dead video game was a great experience. It ended up being like making some great friends, and then just having to do, like, being able to get to do Merle and Daryl's backstory and how they grew up and how they came into the world was,
Yeah.
I mean, that was a ton of responsibility and and that was a crash course in, like, okay, they're going to do this, right? And then legal from AMC going, you can't do this, this, or this. And you're just like,
Oh.
Oh, geez. Come on.
Oh.
Yeah.
and then you're like, okay, and then what about this? And then they get, because, it's a huge property for them, like their biggest property, in fact, right? And so they're very
Yeah.
protective of it, and they want to make sure it's healthy. So then they say stuff like, well, does the porch have to be elevated? And you're just like, okay, now we're getting too far. Like, does the porch have to be an elevated porch? Yeah, they're in the Blue Mountains of Georgia. Like, come on. Like
Can you just let me cook over here? Come on over.
Yeah,
exactly.
let me write the script.
Yeah.
You look over it, and then we can talk about it later.
Right. So exactly. But yeah, that was a great experience, and that was really fun. And that I wouldn't have been able to have that job if it weren't for working on like Men in Black 3.
I saw that too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's cool.
so
That's
that was
cool. Yeah.
Sony was a lot less. They were like, yeah, do what you want.
A
Yeah.
lot less funny.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, yeah, you're like, okay.
Now,
Yeah, but so that was,
now,
yeah.
now that experience of you, writing the scripts for the games, did that help you in any way of making this style of movie?
Yes and no. Yes, I can write really quickly now because one thing that writing video games that you have to be able to do is, again, the production companies aren't given enough money to code, right?
Hmm.
They're given a budget that is probably half of what they need, right? If that. And so you write out, you do the outline, everyone agrees on it. They start coding that outline, doing the environment, doing the locations, doing the buildings, and then halfway through halfway through the process of making the video game, they might say like, we just ran out of time to do a code, so this can't be a hospital anymore. Could it be a trailer in a trailer park? And you're like,
Sure.
okay, yeah, we can do that. And then they say, oh, we don't have enough time to code 5 characters. Can you change them to 2? And you're like,
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay.
And then, so then it's like, and you have to type, you're writing as quickly as possible, but trying to, again, keep in line with the story and
Hmm.
figuring out if we go from 5 characters down to 2, now you have to figure out how does the dynamic change, right? Because you have to think about all the, like, if the hero is an outsider or an intermediary between 2 worlds, how does that affect the story? So if they're partly accepted in this world and partly accepted in this world, but not really accepted by either, what is it that makes them unique that brings them together, right? Even like
Yeah.
trying to keep them apart or whatever, like, trying to keep the girl from getting attacked. She's going to, but at some point, no
Hmm.
matter how hard he tries, it's going to happen. It's inevitable.
Yep.
And what did he do?
Yeah.
What does his character do once that happens? Whether she lives or dies, what happens when those 2 worlds collide? And so you have to keep concepts like that, structures like that in place. And so you
Gotcha.
think your writing brain gets a certain way. And so I think that
Yeah.
allowed me to write quickly. But it also allowed me to do, like, go through drafts and figure out, okay, when we shoot, I know we only have 15 days and we're not going to touch the script because when you get in the middle of production, you forget stuff, right? Like you forget why this has to happen this way because you're also shooting out a sequence. So then
Yeah.
you have a lot of people on set. They're like, oh, what if we did this? And what if we did that? And you're just like, I think that would be great, but I don't know because we're actually shooting now, right? Like we're in the middle of making the car. We can't say, oh, let's add an extra headlight because I don't know. That was the blueprint phase, right? And we're well past the blueprints.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like we could
Yeah.
add an extra light, but then when you're all done, you're like, oh shit, where does the hood go, right? So you don't ever want to be
Oh,
caught
gotcha.
in the
Yeah.
edit where you're like, oh shit, we needed that scene. It doesn't work anymore, right? So
Yeah.
there was a lot of that experience helped me with that. But then as far as like the content goes, I wanted to get not again. I love Walking Dead. I love
Hmm.
everything that Skybound has done with them. I think the stories are phenomenal. No, you
Yeah.
don't. But
I loved it,
yeah,
and you know, Justin over there doesn't really care for it, but I did.
Let me explain my side here,
okay,
please. The first four seasons were fantastic.
yeah,
When they got within the fenced-in walls,
yeah,
it became a reality show to me,
okay.
and
See, I didn't get that
Well,
it's
feeling
it's
to it.
stuff that I've seen before.
like at Hilltop,
Like
when they got to Hilltop,
yeah,
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and it just got bland.
yeah,
So I immediately checked out.
Hilltop and Alexandria. And,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
No
okay.
thanks. The
yeah,
first 4, perfect.
yeah. I did, and I think as much as I like the comic book, and I love the comic book. I like the first 4 seasons or all the seasons, whatever it is. I wanted
Hmm.
to be as far removed from that as possible. Like as
Oh yeah.
I respect it, and I wanted to create a world that was not it at all. because I respect it so much. Like I didn't want it to be like, oh, here's just another thing that could happen in the world of the living dead, right?
Yeah.
Like I wanted it to be something that, you know, it's tough. I don't want to sound like, I respect Romero so much, but it would be the whole thing in my mind was like, what would if he were still alive, if I sent him a script, would it be something that he would not go, what is this shit? Right? Like just something that he would be like, oh, it's okay. That he would enjoy.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like what I
I
was
get that.
thinking. What's that?
I said I get that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. So that was kind of, and then on top of it, you want to, I think anytime you create something on your own, you want it to be unique and interesting, right? And different from anything else that anyone else has done. So, that was kind of that was the mindset. But yeah, I think Black Summer is fantastic. If you've seen that.
Oh yes.
That is phenomenal zombie storytelling. Like that's excellent.
That's top tier.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing to me not everyone has heard of it. Like I am shocked when I tell people like, have you seen Black Summer on Netflix? And they're just like, what? It's like that show should have gone on for, and then Last of Us.
I think it was cut too short.
Yeah, I think so too.
They could have. They could have.
Yeah, they could have went longer.
Yep, for sure.
They could have went so many different ways with that, and they could have just kept going with it, and then they just cut it. And it's like, why?
Well, there was a Russian zombie. I don't know if it's zombie or infected. I can't remember the name of it, but it was I think it was Russian, where it's like very similar to Black Summer in the sense where it's like a group of survivors, and then they're like trying to go north towards like abandoned lake, and I don't remember.
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they find like a crashed plane, and they hang out in the plane, and
oh my god,
not ringing a bell to me, but I can't remember. I know the name, but I can't remember it. It's like right on the tip.
I was fascinated
with my tongue, and it just.
I was fascinated with the fact that you had zombies in the beginning, and then you didn't see them ever again. Like it was right. It was just the idea of them that they were able to convincingly get you to be like, oh shit, they're around the corner. They could be here. They could be there. And they never came back. And you were like, fuck. Like that was so impressive to me that just the fear of them and then not seeing them again, was a fantastic element of that series.
Oh, it was called To the Lake.
Yes.
To the Lake. Yes.
To the Lake.
That's
to
right.
the lake. There you go.
Yes, that's it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
I couldn't remember that.
Yeah.
Well,
I know what I'm watching tonight. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, do you want to ask him the big question?
What was that?
Or do you want me to ask him the big question?
So, no, I have a couple other ones. So, what made you like? I know you picked your area for possibly for a reason.
Yeah.
But did you have another area in mind of shooting this film?
No.
No.
Nope.
I wrote it specifically because we shot during the Omicron variant, and I wrote it specifically. I knew what I had to work with. I knew we could afford 15 days, and that was it, right? Because I knew 75% of our budget went to payroll, and so I knew we were limited with art department. We were limited with all the stunts had to be mine, right? Like I knew that the risk had to be minimal, and so we're fortunate enough to have 5.5 acres. I knew exactly which area of the acreage to make look like a different scene and a different location. So we shot, I believe it was 40 locations for the one location. And so I specifically wrote the script to fit the location. And then I specifically wrote the script for the characters, with the actors in mind. And so again, that's why we couldn't change. Once we hit production, I told everyone, like, there's just no changing. No matter how good the idea, right, we have to stay tight to this because we just don't have any room for error. And so we actually ended up, our AD, Catherine Hatam, wrapped us in 14 days out of the 15. So we were so efficient, which is unheard
So
of
you
on
had a whole
video.
day of just making sure everything looked right to use,
Yeah, exactly. Like
pretty
as
much.
many pickups
Yeah.
as possible.
Hmm.
We didn't have, because we didn't have budget, we weren't able to do like dailies. We weren't able to even do playback. So, I'd do a scene. If it was a vital scene where I knew we couldn't substitute a different shot and edit, then I would say
Hmm.
like, okay, let's look at playback real quick. But playback, taking time to go look at playback kills a lot of, if you can be efficient enough not to ever look at playback, it gives you, little bits of time here and there. So it was
Okay.
it was essentially relying on, like, I know the actors got it. Uh, if I were in the scene with them, I could really feel it, and I'd be like, I know for sure we got it based on the camera angles that we have. I know we've got it. And
Okay.
so that's kind of a lot of people ask me like, was it really hard to act and direct at the same time? And it was just like, for the scenes when I'm acting with another person or persons, it's so
Yeah.
much easier because I'm always thinking about the edit,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, I know we've got this because I saw it firsthand. Like I felt it, and I know
Yeah.
if we captured the feeling, we're set. Whereas I think
And
when
that was gonna be my next question.
yeah,
Like, how was it to be both sides of it?
I think I love dealing with problems, right? I love
Hmm.
solving problems, and I love acting, and so I don't see ever directing without acting. Like um it's so I went to college I was a theater major in college, and then
Okay.
um my advisor told me my final year that I don't have the kind of look that people pay hundreds of dollars for to see
Okay.
Shakespeare, right? Like I
I
don't,
don't under,
yeah.
I don't understand how somebody could tell you that.
So
There's a look.
I don't have, yeah,
Yeah, it is.
I don't have the right look for people. Aren't going to pay $100 a seat to see me perform Shakespeare. Someone like me perform Shakespeare, right? So then I
Okay.
was like, all right, that's, and I don't,
I don't.
um, but for whatever,
That's that's conf
what's that?
mind blowing. That's just mind blowing and confusing to me. Because like I would have never pictured somebody saying that, like, oh well, nobody wants to pay to see you.
Yeah, it was, and at the time I was probably, 20, 21, and I think, I just took it. I was like, oh crap, I'm not going to have a job. So then and then I went, and that's why I applied to be a cop. So it was, if I can't be one on TV, I'm going to be one in real life. But,
Okay.
yeah, it was, so I think acting is something that now come full circle is something that I've always wanted to do, and it's extremely cathartic. Um, I've had some really, I've had a life I've been through some things, and being able to act
Mhm.
has been like, I didn't realize what kind of great therapy it is. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. So I can get a lot of that stuff out. I also, before getting into filmmaking, the lowest point in my life, my dad, who I love and respect very much, said, I don't like the man you're becoming. And that was hard to
Oh,
hear.
geez.
So now doing film and being happy and finding, I started, I started dating my wife, and then on our honeymoon was actually, we got an email asking if I'd come and work on a M. Night Shyamalan film. I was just like, oh shit. And then it seemed like from there on, for the last 12 years, it's been just like
Mhm.
a phenomenal life. Like, I can't believe I thought what I did before was good, but now this life is like, life can be better. Like, every day I'm just like, man, I'm so fucking lucky, right? Like, I get
Yeah.
to do something I
Yeah.
love. I have two awesome kids. I have a beautiful wife. Um, and I have a family that makes me want to be a better person than I actually am. And that's a good place to be,
That's awesome.
right? Yeah.
Damn.
That's awesome.
So, but anyhow, yeah, I hope that got in the movie, because that was
Oh
kind of
yeah.
the intent. Like, I
Oh
know,
yeah.
like, horror fans love great story, but, so I figured we have a great story that has twists and turns for for your intellect, and then at the same time,
Oh yeah, there's a lot of twists.
yeah, thanks.
And I already know tonight when she comes home, I'm fucking her life up with this movie too.
Yeah,
Because I'm gonna ask her the same question. Well, what would you
yeah,
do if
Yeah,
I contracted something? How long would you give me? Hmm?
yeah,
yeah.
So you,
Like I'll tell you, my wife would have bumped me off right away. There, as soon as I
there's
got bit, it would have been done and over with. Chop the head off. Let's go. Um,
she will
eh,
say, I ain't taking no chances.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it does. Um, Not saying
no
that
chances.
she doesn't love me or anything, but it's
No,
just
Is it
there's no chances.
yeah,
is it time to ask him the question?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll ask this one real quick, and maybe it's the same one as you.
I hope.
If you had a chance with any budget or anything, what horror movie would
you
you
remake.
remake? Yeah.
I listen to your podcast.
Yeah.
He knows.
Yeah. Uh,
But that's
I,
usually
That's
my
awesome.
gig.
so
That's
I,
my gig he just stole from me.
what's that?
Yeah.
He stole my gig. That
Yeah,
was my
Yeah.
line.
yeah, that's my
I
yeah.
stole your
What the
spot
heck?
It's
there.
a good thing. It's a good thing I have another one to wrap this
Yeah,
up with. So
yeah.
you're lucky.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't.
good.
I don't think I know that the last 8 out of so the highest performing films of last year, 8 of the 10 were remakes
Hmm.
or something that in the IP universe of something else, right?
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
I think that's just the way marketing works, right?
Yep.
But I can't think of a single film that I feel like film on in two ways. One, film is a snapshot of history, right? It's a historical document of the time, right? Like it's when you look back at a film like, The Thing, or maybe not The Thing. Let's say like, I don't know, Escape from New York, right?
Hmm.
Like the way it's shot, where it's shot, how it's shot, the locations, the way that people are dressed. That's all a historical
Yeah.
document, right? But it's
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
kind of a commentary on society, right? Like even the craziest films like Army of Darkness, right? Like that's
Ooh, now we're talking.
still a commentary
Hmm.
on like that's what society, Sam Raimi was like, this is where I think society is. And you get some of the best one-liners of any film ever in that, but that was
Oh
the
yeah.
culture of the time, right? Like one-liners were king or queen of that time.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I don't think movies should be remade for that reason, but also I think we choose, like Howard Suber is this excellent professor. I think he's at UCLA or USC or something, but he's like not only a film professor, but he's a statistician. And he put together like the
Hmm.
7 attributes that are common in films that are memorable and popular. And something that he said that I think is very
Hmm.
true is that when we remember a film or pieces of film, we've made that memory ours, right? Like
Oh yeah.
go back to the chestburster scene in Alien. Like you've made that memory yours. Or the time where Jaws pops out of the water onto the deck, right? Like that's part of your
Yeah.
memory. Like you own that memory. And for that reason alone, I don't know that I would ever want to remake anything. Um,
Okay.
but it, you know, the even the worst films, who knows, 20 years from now, people might be, because of where society's at, they might be like, oh, best film ever, or, hilarious. And if we remake those, there's a chance they won't see that.
Talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Best film ever.
There's no. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
No.
talk to us. I'll make talk to us. No.
Talk to us.
Talk to us.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, Brandon, you ready?
Go ahead.
Please tell me there's going to be a sequel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
please.
I had one written probably a year ago. Uncontained is based on a TV series that I had written. So I have a Bible with 5 seasons. And so Uncontained was a very family driven, intimate introduction into that world. So right now it's a matter of, do we do a TV series or do we do a sequel? Or there's another offer I have for an action movie about cop who's protecting a little girl. So there's that potential as well. But it's going to take a lot for me to. I love horror too much. I don't know if that I ever want to do a horror. Like it'd have to be the right circumstances. So potentially a sequel. And thank you for asking. But then there's also another script I have about a serial killer who wants to be possessed. So, the most dangerous person in the world is the one that wants to be possessed, right? So the serial killer, I was fortunate enough I worked for the State Detectives Bureau for a while, and I was fortunate enough to be included in an interview with a serial killer that we have here. And, when you capture a serial killer, they got nothing to do all day. They're bored to tears. I mean, all prisoners are, right? So you get a sociopath or someone with sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies, right? They have they have the psychopathy that they just want to talk about themselves. They're narcissistic, right? And so he just loves talking, and the idea is you get him to admit to more murders than he actually committed, right? So if he's in prison for committing 3 murders but potentially killed 10 people, you want to get him to confess to the other 10 so you can find them, put the families at ease, right? But he said something interesting once where he stated that he was looking to be possessed because he was losing his physical ability to kill, right? Like he was getting old.
Oh, jeez.
And so he was like, in his head, he was like, oh, he's going to go get possessed. And then that way he would have enough power to continue to kill. So that, I was like, well, that's an interesting concept. And so I wrote a script based on that. Aging serial killer wants to be possessed, and what happens if they do get possessed? What would you do? Right? Like, how do you deal?
So you had that one for a while? That one written?
Yeah, so I'd probably rewrite that. But that one, again, I like making movies that I don't ever see having like a gigantic runaway production. I want to make a movie that's always going to be financially successful so I can continue to make movies. But also the constraint of having, under $1 million, right? I don't ever want to do one again where we only have $55,000. Like literally almost killed me, right? But having a budget of between 500,000 to $1 million, I think is very doable. I can attach the right kind of talent that's recognizable, and then I'm all for. I love the constraints. I love having constraints because they're challenges, and when you're challenged, you get creative. And so it's not just having a creative story, but then also saying, okay, we can only shoot at this one location. We have to make this building look like a school, a police department, hospital, and whatever. And then that gets everyone going in a creative force, and then you get that on the screen. So I think it just depends on which one is right for that. And so we'll see. But I always hope to shoot too, and I'd like to always shoot in Minnesota, but right now we're having issues with our tax rebate program. So if we can get that working, then, I will. But, I really don't want a lot of production shoot in foreign countries because you get so much money back, which allows you to put that back in the film, right? But I just don't. I always want to shoot in the United States because I'm a big union guy, and I want to support our unions. I want to support our local crew. I want to support American workers, and so I'll always shoot. I think I'll always shoot in the United States, and then I'd specifically like to shoot in like cold weather. I just love shooting. I think it's an element that we just don't see enough of, like white snow.
And
it adds just another, as far as cinematography goes, I think it adds another nice element. So,
whatever you put out, I'm watching. That's all I'm
Thank
saying.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm for whatever you got left.
So
You know what I mean?
whatever you make,
Yeah.
All you gotta do is shoot me a message that something's coming out, and you got my eyes.
Thank you. Well, actually, I
Yeah.
got an offer to do a movie about Kool-Aid. I'm kidding. I didn't get an offer to do
No, I was gonna
Kool-Aid.
say,
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
I'm in.
is
I'm
he
in.
killing people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if he is,
Yeah. Right.
Hey, he might be public domain. We don't know yet.
public
Right.
domain.
Yeah. Right. Didn't you guys just review Popeye?
We did.
Yes, we
Yeah.
We
did.
did Popeye's Revenge, and I'm getting ready to do Popeye the Slayer Man. So
Yes.
Yeah.
I look forward to that.
So
Like, yeah.
anything independent, I got my hand in
Oh,
because I don't.
Yeah.
You already know how I feel about
Yeah.
main Hollywood movies.
I did,
Yeah, right now Maine is not. It's
Maine's
not
not
where
where
it
it's at.
is.
no, it could be
No,
though. Like, look at, I mean, you think about, I mean, it's
it
so
can, but
close. Like, look at Joker's Wild, right?
Oh my god.
Like
yes,
that,
Mm.
that's the Joker film that I think is a comic book fan, is a, fan of DC or I mean, just anything. That film would kick ass, right?
I
Like,
was just talking to him yesterday.
yeah, like,
He gets it.
yeah.
is is it still in the works of a full movie yet?
I don't
I,
know. Was that
I
Aaron
wish.
Bennett did that, right? Aaron Bennett?
Yeah, Aaron Bennett. Yeah.
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 Fuck that dude. Man, he's
Shout out to Aaron
phenomenal.
Bennett.
What's that?
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to
Yes.
Aaron
Shout
Bennett.
out.
Fuck
He
yeah.
gets it.
Phenomenal director. I mean, he,
Yes.
I think he did that for like nothing, right? Like there was no money for that, wasn't right?
Oh, there was a little bit of money.
A
Yeah.
little bit. Okay.
It was a little. Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't much,
Yeah.
but
Ooh.
So
it was still worth it.
Yeah. And I think, Robert Englund was a great actor behind the mat and behind the makeup,
oh
but
yeah.
Mhm.
David Howard Thornton, man. Or wait, David Thornton Howard? No, David
David Howard
Yeah,
Thornton.
Howard Thornton.
David Howard
Yeah.
Thornton.
Fuck.
Yeah.
He's the shit. Like that. He should be
Ah,
making gigantic.
yeah.
He should be in anything anyone does in the studio level, right? Like,
Yeah.
guy. Cineverse is lucky to have him. Like he is exactly what studios need.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's wrap this up. Everybody go see Uncontained on Screenbox streaming now,
Yes. Yes.
and
Let's
give
get it
this
number
man a
one.
follow. Let's get this number one. Let's knock Art the Clown out.
No,
Put him number 3 or 4.
no. Yeah. Thank you.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. We would.
It's still in the family. Come on now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. It was a great show. I love talking to you guys.
If you ever
Yes.
need anything from us, you know where we are.
Thank
Bad
you.
mouth and talk to me.
Yeah, right.
Wish you
Where
nothing
can
but the
people
best.
find you on social media? Where can people find you?
You can go to uncontained_film on Instagram, or you can just find me at Morley Nelson on Instagram.
Morley Nelson.
Yeah. I think right now my logo is the uncontained red and white poster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not cool enough just to be Morley, like Sting or whatever. But Morley
Or
Nelson.
Seal or
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. No, I'm proud of my Viking heritage, so the Nelson is good.
Nice.
Everybody go see Uncontained streaming now on Screenbox.
Thank you.